Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome. I hope you have had another fabulous week. I feel like every time I blink, it's time for another live. The weeks are just getting quicker and quicker. I always find that happens once spring arrives. I don't know if you do, where you feel like the weather's a little nicer. You're starting to get outside more. So really enjoying this springtime. Hope you have some great plans for the weekend. It's supposed to rain all day Saturday here, but be a beautiful Sunday. So looking forward to that. I'm happy all of you have joined me today for our live. I'm very excited about this topic. I feel like I know we've all been there, and a lot of us have questions about this. And I hope this is going to give you some additional help and information about certain sleep products that we know are not safe. We know we shouldn't be using them, but sometimes we just get desperate and we just feel like we need to get our baby to sleep somehow. So today we're going to be talking about how do we remove and get rid of these sleep products that we know our little ones shouldn't be sleeping in, but we feel like we really don't know what else to do. So first, let me share with you, I want you to know that unfortunately the baby industry is really taking advantage over the last few years of tired parents. They really know how to market to us. They know how to sell us on things. And sadly enough, they're really taking advantage of that because I've had 3 babies of my own. I remember and I know how exhausting the newborn phase is, the baby phase. When you have hiccups in the road or if your baby isn't sleeping, you get desperate. And a lot of these sleep products, they know, and they're legally not supposed to be selling these products as sleep products. So they kind of navigate around it and, are very slick with how they share things with you. For instance, the Rock and Play. We know those have now been taken off the market because of how unsafe they were. They basically were trying to use it and sell it as a rock and play, like it's a little space for your baby to sit while they're supervised. I had one with my third. Number one, I got it because obviously I wanted to see how the product was, and I thought this would be a good time to use it, just like if I'm giving the other kids a bath and she's sitting beside me, put her in it, I'm cooking dinner, put her in there beside me. I never used it as a sleep place. Number one, she didn't like that. And number two, I knew we shouldn't use it as a sleep space, especially at bedtime and overnight sleep where everybody's sleeping and the baby's not being supervised. So when I saw that product, I was like, well, there's a lot of unsafe about just sitting here because it could easily fold in and out. It could collapse easily. Anything could easily slide in it the way it was angled. But again, they were marketing it to like, oh, here's the Rock and Play. But they knew that parents were using it to sleep. And they knew that that's how parents were surviving by this product. And it grew drastically. Well, luckily, it came off the market and it's not on there anymore, which it shouldn't be, because you as the consumer are trusting what they are giving you and what they are telling and sharing with you. And sadly, that's just not the only company. All these companies are doing it now. And whether we're talking about the DockATot, whether we're talking about those rock and plays, the swings, the bouncer seats, the wedges, the boppies, all these things that are out there that just plain and simple aren't safe and we shouldn't be using them, but we get into that groove of hey, I'm just surviving here. And I know most clients that come to me have some kind of dependency on a type of product. A lot of times, it's the DockATot. In the last year and a half, it's really been the snoo. The biggest one I see there is when they try and move from the snoo to the crib. That's where the hardest transition comes in. So we need to talk about how we can get rid of these products. And these are dependencies that our babies have. So it's the same dependency like if you rock your baby to sleep or you nurse your baby to sleep or you hold them to sleep. It's a dependency that we're trying to break. So yes, it's not always going to be easy. Number one, definitely I say, the best thing is to not start using it. So then we don't have to remove it or remove these products. But again, I know we've all been there. And I will tell you with the DockATot too, with my third, I got the DockATot to, again, try out where I could easily see it, see what it's like. Again, she was only in it when she was awake. I never used it as a sleep area for her. because I just wanted to see, and it really did help me see how unsafe things were. And the biggest thing with the DocuTod is a lot of people end up putting it in a crib, which that's the biggest thing we want to stay away from, because that gets very, very unsafe when we're putting that DocuTod in the crib. So how are we going to transition out of them and move past them? So the first thing we need to talk about is, I will tell you, number one, the easiest way to get rid of it is cold turkey. I know it can be hard, but it's actually the fastest way to move out of it, and you give yourself ease of mind, especially at bedtime and overnight sleep. I understand, and I tell you all the time, nap sleep's different. Sometimes we have to assist, sometimes we have to help on naps, and I understand that, and you're watching. Obviously, we want them out of it for both night and nap sleep, but you really want to tackle that overnight sleep first, because that's when everybody's sleeping. There's no supervision on baby. So I would definitely just tell yourself, this is about the safest sleep environment that we can set up. And yes, we may have some tough days in the beginning, but if you cut it cold turkey, it's really going to just do everybody some good and kind of start fresh from it. Obviously, the earlier, the even better. So, if you thought or just started putting a newborn in it, go ahead, because that's going to be the easiest to take away from. Once we start getting into older children, obviously we have a lot of habits that we have to break. I do work with older children that we have to break the DocuTod, the snooze, swings, all those things. So let's go ahead and do that. Next, I would really start working on it at bedtime. I would start doing anything else that you can to get them out of it. So once you've taken it away, even if you have to help them, you have to assist them in some way to sleep, that's at least going to be much better than them being in this unsafe product. So you're allowing them to try and get to sleep, and a lot of times you'll be shocked. A lot of times they may fight you a little bit, but they usually will fall asleep at some point. It's when they wake shortly after. That's the hard part, right? So the more you can start introducing it at bedtime, and they get used to bedtime routine, they get used to there's no more DocuTod, there's no more unsafe sleep product, we're going into the crib, and start getting at least a first initial fall asleep in the first initial chunk, then you feel like, okay, at least we've mastered something here. We're going to start getting that well. Now, when they wake, that's where you have to choose what techniques, what methods you want to use, how are you going to try and get them back to sleep. So there's a lot to think about there. If it's time for a feed, offer the feed and try and get them back to sleep. Now, if they go back to sleep, awesome, yay, that's wonderful. If, like I was just saying, they're not going back to sleep or they're struggling and you have to find another way to put them to sleep, then do so. So if you have to rock them or help them or assist them to sleep in some way, then do so. Again, your first goal is getting out of this unsafe sleep product. So again, it can and probably will be rocky at the beginning, but we've got to move them away from that, especially overnight. That's your biggest tackle right now, is bedtime and overnight. Then I always like to set goals. You want to set goals of, okay, let's try and get a little bit longer without, needing help or assistance to get to sleep. So we're not bringing the unsafe sleep product back. We are just trying to let's get every few nights a little longer before they need me to help them back to sleep, whether that be rock them to sleep or something like that. Now that's if you are choosing to go more hands-on and more parent-guided, where you're going to be helping them with those techniques. If you choose and you want to go a little bit firmer methods, then you will be doing other things to try and help for them to fall back asleep. Now, this is very important too. You want to make sure that when we're talking about the crib or bassinet, that it is 100% safe too. You want a solid, flat surface. You want firm mattresses. You want extra firm mattresses. You want them to be hard, firm, because once they start rolling, they start pushing up, they start moving, that firm mattress helps them do those things and make sure that their face isn't getting buried down in the mattress. A tight fitting crib sheet. And then if they have a pacifier, of course, they can have the pacifier in the crib. And then they need to have their swaddle or their sleep sack on. And that's all that they need to be put into, their crib. They don't need anything else, during the transition. Now, I want you to know that you have to be extra patient during this. Just like it took your child that long to get used to the product and they enjoyed it, and say you've been using it for 3 months, It usually just doesn't overnight go away for a lot of them, and they're magically going to just start sleeping. You know, you had 3 months of bad habits that came into place, so it's going to take you some time and consistency to get in to that crib. Now, obviously, when I'm talking to you and I'm talking to my clients, you know, I'm giving you all the best information I can give you, the healthiest, the safest, most recommended recommendations for you. And yes, at the end of the day, it's your child and you're going to choose what's best for your child. But I highly, highly recommend that you work away from these unsafe sleep products and work away from, again, we in the industry are really pushing hard for their standards to be taken way up. They are misleading a lot of these companies. They are misleading the consumers. They mislead us as tired parents on trying to get these products and knowing at the end we're going to use these products, or not we, they are going to use these products to help you sleep longer. So we're really trying to keep you educated on what is safe, what is not safe, how we can get into the crib. It's a huge transition, and I know it is. And this is one thing that I work a lot with clients on. And sometimes you just need that extra help and support to be like, hey, I've got a baby who is in a DocuTot and we can't get out. And on top of that, we've got, you know, they're also needing to be fed to sleep, or they also need to be rocked to sleep. So we've got a lot of things that we've got to tackle, and I just can't do it on my own. And I've tried all the research and things, but it's just not going the way I did. And that's where it's great, because that's where I come in and help families, and I take all that away from you to give you exactly what we're going to do, what plan we're going to do, how we're going to get our babies out of these unsafe products and into better sleep for everybody. So those are some of the major tips you want to work for. I would really, again, start planning in your bedtime, having a very solid and consistent, simple bedtime routine. So your baby can start picking up those cues, and then start picking up the cues of how they're going to initially fall off to sleep and how they're going to fall asleep now without that unsafe sleep product. Along with that today, let me pull up, I had a great question yesterday in one of my Facebook groups, and it kind of actually goes in line with this, and I thought this was great because I could talk about it on live and give some more feedback to it. So this comes from a 7-month-old mom whose son just won't nap by himself. He's never napped by himself. You know, they've tried a bath and then a nap. They've tried car rides. They've tried feeding to sleep, rocking to sleep, and laying him down, and laying down while he's sleepy but awake. All the things they feel like they've tried, and it's just not working. And then at night, he will be fed and rocked to sleep, and then they put him down, but he still won't sleep anywhere else. And it's some unsafe sleep habits in here as well, because they have a crib wedge and it's on the couch, and neither mom or dad are sleeping because they're watching and making sure he's okay all night, and she's exhausted and tired, and it's a big baby. You know, he's growing well, which is great, but it's exhausting for everybody. So, you know, she wanted to know how can we get him sleeping better? How can I get him sleeping on his own? So the first thing, when you start looking at all of this, you know, if you start looking at bedtime and overnight and naps and removing everything, it becomes very overwhelming. The first thing I would say is set small goals. Set a goal of, we're just going to focus on bedtime right now, and we're going to pick something to stay consistent with, because there's been a lot of things you've implemented and tried, and there's a lot going on. I would make sure that you have a simple bedtime routine. Bath on the days he gets it. If he doesn't get a bath, that's completely fine. The bedtime routine starts after that. You know, you want to have those same cues of white noise on, diaper on, PJs on. Sleep sack is important. I would highly recommend a good sleep sack. That's much different from a swaddle. A swaddle is when they're newborn and they're swaddled up. He should be fully in a sleep sack now. That will become his cues. That will become his part of his lovey item. Then you might rock and sing a song. So the problem becomes, as he gets older and you're starting to see that, you're going to have to rock for longer and longer. He's going to wake more often. You're going to have to rock him again back to sleep, because once you leave that newborn stage and your actual sleep patterns change, it gets very hard to put them to sleep by you doing it. And you're going to keep doing that work all the time. So this is where you have to choose what methods are comfortable for you. And from some of the other things you had said, I think, more crowd out strategies are not what you're looking for. So you want more hand-on help, parent help, and that's great. Just know that it is going to take a lot more work from you and dad, but stay consistent with it. So you may be even helping him. The biggest thing is you don't want to rock forever. You can have a piece of the bedtime routine, rocking him, singing a song, telling him night-night, those type of things, and then go into the crib. And the biggest thing you have to remember is it's about him initially falling asleep in the crib. So whether you're assisting him, helping him to sleep in the crib, that's fine. I know you said you had a bad back, so you may want to sit next to the crib or lay next to the crib or somewhere where you can kind of assist him more easily with helping him through the crib rails, those type of things. But you have to initially start working for him to put himself to sleep in the crib. Because again, it's just going to get harder and harder and harder. And at this point, he's got to start initially falling asleep in that space. Because when he falls asleep in your arms and then you try and transfer him and he wakes, he's startled, scared, confused because he is somewhere new, not where he left you. The same thing is like if we fell asleep on our couch, in our nice comfy couch in a blanket, and we wake up and we're in our backyard, we're going to freak out. And our stress hormones are going to skyrocket. And we are going to be very far away from ever trying to go back to sleep for a while. So that happens with our babies. So we've got to start getting comfortable with that crib. Now, how else this plays a part is making a positive association in his room. You want to play in his room. You want to when you're putting up laundry, cleaning his room, have him in his crib. This is where you can have a mobile over the crib during playtime. Mobiles need to be removed during sleep time. But during playtime, they can start getting distracted by that, start looking around, getting more comfortable in the crib during the day and awake periods. Those are really helpful. You can play peekaboo in the crib. You can, read books in the crib. All these things that you want to do multiple times in the day to start getting him used to his crib. The naps will come along, but you have to really focus on the bedtime first. And you want to set goals of, okay, I'm going to try as long as I can, set a goal, whatever that may be. We're going to try for X amount of time to try and get him to initially fall asleep in the crib on his own. We're going to stay consistent with the method that we're choosing, with the techniques we're choosing to use. Once we hit that goal, we'll rock him to sleep. When you rock them to sleep, though, you want to make sure you get them into that deep sleep, around that 20-minute marker before you transfer, because otherwise they will wake. And he probably still will wake, but if you're doing that, you need to make sure when you're setting these goals. Then the next night you continue the same with your bedtime, and we're going to be consistent, and we're going to get him to initially fall asleep in the crib. It's not how long he falls asleep in the crib. It's about that initial fall asleep in the crib that's really important. That means he is starting to see that process of falling asleep. And set your goal out a little more. Okay, we made it to 11 o'clock last night. We're going to get closer to 12 or 1 tonight, and we're going to stay consistent with that. And it's all about just staying consistent with baby steps there. And that's when, especially, you're choosing more gentle, guided methods. And then once you start seeing progress at bedtime and you're starting to see some more progress at overnight, then you can really work on the naps. If you want to work on a nap while you're working on the bedtime routine, that's fine. The best nap, though, is the first one of the day. Don't try and tackle them all. It gets very overwhelming. The first nap of the day is the best. So if you want to try and keep that same consistency, at nap time, have your mini nap routine, 5 to 7 minutes, and start attempting that first nap of the day again. And then start seeing if you can make progress there. So that's how you want to go about that. Now, I know we chatted about this yesterday. This is a huge undertaking. And it's very hard for families to tackle all these on their own, because sleep is always changing. And when I work with clients, I really dive deep into their sleep logs, into their sleep information, into their sleep history. I've got to find out where the holes are, what is going to be the best methods, what's going to be the best techniques, how we're going to meet our sleep goals. And that's why I work with families for 30 days. And you can ask any family that I've worked with that in that 30 days, we have so much to conquer and tackle. And then it's always like a process. Like, we'll get this worked on, and then we've got to tweak this. Then we figure out that may not have been the right strategy or the right break windows or whatever, and I need to tweak again. And I spend every day, diving into the information they give me, looking back at history, how we can change. So just know that you're not alone when you feel like I've read it all, I've tried it all, I've implemented it all, and I completely understand. It really does a lot of times take that one-on-one help and support, because this is what I do daily, and this is how I help families, and this is what I do. It's my niche. It's the same thing whether you're looking for a lactation consultant or a chiropractor or a nutritionist. They specialize in this. So while I do try and work out and eat healthy and do well, I look to others for, nutrition tips and for new training ideas and for new help to get to my goals of working out and my nutrition. So the same thing happens with sleep, and sleep's the science, so it's always going to be changing. So I hope this was helpful on the products that you're using, those unsafe products, how we can start, removing those immediately, getting out of those products, creating the safest sleep environment that we can. How is the best way to start going if your child is addicted to a sleep product or they're addicted to rocking to sleep? How we can start getting them to accept more of that initial falling asleep in the crib on their own. And then again, just know there's a lot that goes into it. And I'm happy to hop on those discovery calls with you all. You've been amazing. I've been chatting with so many of you, and I love, just learning more about you, learning about the sleep goals you want to meet, learning about how you can meet those goals, and then how we can work together to get sleep going in the right direction. I would love to hear from you if you have some additional questions or tips, or you've been through this yourself, so you want to know, hey, this really worked for me, and I know that we would love to share that and chat more about it. I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. I will be catching you again next week, so be sure and tune in, and then be sure and send me, I love when you guys will send me messages about, hey, could you talk about this, or do you mind doing a live about this? Like, this is something I'm struggling with, or this is something me and my friends have been struggling with. So send me those messages, and yes, I will get it on my calendar, because I want to make sure that you are getting the sleep you need, and I'm helping you get to those goals. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we will chat again soon.